Good afternoon. My name's Craig Mitchell and welcome from Port Phillip East Presbytery in beautiful Victoria. We're here today for another of our seminars on blended faith formation. How do we do faith formation and education in ways that are both face-to-face and online, and it's part of the challenge of the digital world and the times that we live in, that we as church need to learn to do that. Not just to worship online, but to take advantage of the digital world and digital communication to think about ways in which we can engage people in faith development 24/7. Our guest today is Reverend Amanda Nicholas. Amanda's a United Church minister who's currently in Geelong in Victoria, and she's been playing with digital tools for faith formation as part of her ministry interest in intergenerational Christian education and faith formation. And we're delighted that she spent recent months in lockdown learning to do a bunch of stuff that others of us have been scratching around trying to learn to do. So let's welcome Amanda, and you can meet her and she can tell us what we're doing today. Hi there, Amanda.
Hi, Craig.
The technology's working so far and I'm happy about that.
Yay, that's very exciting. This is very different from me.
Yeah, that's right. I'm on the buttons end and you're on the guest end. So welcome from the other side of Port Phillip Bay. And it's good to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
So tell us a bit about what we're going to be doing today.
So over the course of the next hour or so, I thought I might just take you through a little bit of a step in my brain when it comes to preparing for blended faith formation activities, and how I have been using and experimenting with lots of digital tools for creating interactive and active engagement online, rather than just click this and sit and watch it kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yep. So there are tools involved, but it's actually about more than that. It's about how we think about teaching and learning in this kind of environment.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely. And I think it's really important that we spend the time to actually talk about those things, because that actually has an impact on what it is that we do with the space as well too.
So for the viewers' sake, Amanda's going to be walking us through a couple of lesson plans, I guess, lesson planning.
Yeah.
And we've chosen to do that around Advent, which is timely, of course. And we'll be stopping on the way through for questions and answers.
Yep.
And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So I had meant to start by saying welcome to country.
Thank you very much.
I welcome you from the land of the Bunurong people of eastern Port Phillip Bay. And Amanda, where are you from?
It's my great delight and privilege to be living, working, resting and playing on the land of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations. And it's beautiful countryside down here.
So let us all, wherever we're from, acknowledge the ancestry and the stewardship and the presence of the people of the land, the First Peoples. Pay our respects to them and pray and work for justice and reconciliation. So there'll be a chance to chat. My colleague Duncan McLeod is running the chat, and when we pause, he'll be feeding through your comments. You'll see Duncan's putting something in there now. If you want to ask a question, feel free to chat. And Amanda's got a whole bunch of resources for later as well, so you won't go away empty-handed somehow.
Absolutely
There'll be stuff
not.
coming through the pipeline. So Amanda, I'm going to hand over to you to let's see if the next scene works.
Alrighty.
And you can dive in.
Great. Okay? Thank you.
Here we go.
Marvellous. So I have a real passion in terms of thinking about faith formation and how we do faith formation in blended communities. And it's become quite obvious over the last couple of years as we've moved in and out of lockdown status that needing to actually give it more attention than what we have been is something that is greatly needed, and not necessarily something that we've been very good at, because it requires us to look beyond our current understandings of how we do faith formation. So for me, one of the things that's been really important in understanding how we use our digital tools and our online settings is that we're people who actually build community. We're a relational people, and as the church, we are relational. And so looking at how we then make the process of faith formation in an online setting more relational than just an informational gathering experience has been something that's been really important for me. And, there's heaps of scripture that actually tells us this. Jesus takes the disciples aside time and time again and actually gives them the walkthrough after he's done the proclamations. Stories like the feeding of the 5,000, and then Jesus just takes the disciples away and goes through that with them. And other stories again and again, all through scripture, show us the importance of the need for being intentional about our Christian education. And I say that deliberately because it's not something that's an innate thing, it's something that is a learnt thing. We actually need to learn how to do that. And I've been particularly passionate about this, I think, because it's been something that in my own life, have experienced. As a neurodiverse adult, I've struggled to try and figure out how to make sense of scripture and theology and all of the bits of doctrine and bits and pieces in ways that I can resonate with. Because when I look at a page and I see lots of words, it doesn't actually, it doesn't connect at all. So trying to get that connection that goes from what I'm seeing to what it makes me feel, and the experience of the growth of the relationship that I have with Jesus Christ and with one another in community. So I think that's sort of it in the first part. Many of you will be familiar, and this is actually where I'm just going to say to Duncan, hey, Duncan, that link that I gave to you, because I can't see what's going up at the moment, that says the page, the website, the Digital Tools for Discipleship website. If you can click on that link or chuck it into the chat, then people can actually start to have a look there. And as you're looking through there, there's one section in particular I want to invite you to have a look at right at this moment. And that is the section about what your hopes and expectations are. And if you can just take 2 minutes to just jot some things down, that'd be really great, because that helps us as well too. And in a moment, we'll pop up the learning barriers one as well too. And don't stress, because I can always throw it in the chat from here. But back on with the story. So I thought, for me, designing discipleship processes is something that's really important, and it's something that needs to be done with great intentionality as well as great attention to what we're doing. And Craig, I'm just going to put a caveat here to say, feel free to jump in and tell me to stop anytime, because I'll just keep talking about this for ages. So, whenever you want to press the T button and tell me to move on, go for it. So I thought, especially as a neurodiverse adult, one of the things I struggled with is having the capacity to be able to continue to remember the pieces of information. I have a really bad working memory, and there's nothing I can do about that. So I've been working with the team of people that are in my care team to figure out how to create an external brain. And so for me, that looks like having lots of cheat sheets and checklists and other bits and pieces. And so as I started putting those together, I'm going, actually, you know what? This is something that is going to be helpful, not just for me, but for other people as well too. So I thought I might walk you through how I look at it today. And with Craig as my master chef hero here, who's actually been and chefed in my kitchen when we lived in Launceston, I thought I'd take you through this in terms of thinking about it as a recipe, because we're not talking about a structure or a framework. If you want to talk about it, there's two ways that I see it. What we do is in faith formation is provide the content for the experience of developing the relationship with God. What we need to do is actually do the work of Christian education, which is the process by which we actually do that stuff. So we're taking our content and we're actually overlaying that into already established educational frameworks. But for me, it's more like a recipe, because it can be so varied every time you approach it as well too. So with that in mind, I think we might actually just jump onto my Jamboard quickly. So what we have that I've popped into the chat, I think Duncan's put that into the chat, is a screen which actually invites us to think about what are the barriers that prevent us from learning. And so, in terms of the way that we do interactive stuff, what I'd like you to do today is to actually, if there's a link up there that invites you to interact, to invite you to interact, and I can already see there are some people doing that. Fantastic. So, if you open it up and you just type in on there using the text box that's down there, or you want to use the pen and write it yourself, just write on the page for yourself what you think are the barriers for learning. And as we do this, it will begin to sort of make itself known as people actually do that, and add their bits and pieces in. Fingers crossed, this is the way we do it. There we go. I'm seeing somebody on the screen. And this is what I'm using is actually a Google product called Jamboard, and it's literally just a collaborative whiteboard, and it's super, super easy to use. One of the things that I was wanting to make sure I was mindful of was, just because I know how to do something doesn't mean that everybody else knows how to do something. So the whole purpose of this is to use the very basics of things that you're probably already familiar with to actually experiment and to create a whole lot of stuff. And then from there, once you actually have the experience of being able to try and do things, you can then learn a little bit more. And I thought the best way to do that would be to actually see this as the beginning of a process. So, because this is something that I'm really passionate about, this is the little plug for next year. The plan is that we'll be hosting through Growing Faith Down Under, through Creatio and in collaboration with some others, a series of these kinds of in-class sessions. So we'll do a course together, and it'll be a course when we can actually come in and talk and do all of the things together in there. So we'll actually have digital face-to-face time. I'm not going to confuse you by trying to tell you which platform I think will work best for that, because it's just going to be so out there for some people. But hey, I can see already that some of the common themes that are coming up when it comes to talking about how we use digital spaces is the idea that we're anxious about it getting it right, that it might not be communicated clearly, that trying to grasp concepts and all of the things that go with it is actually challenging as well too. And the challenges of slow and old technology. Yeah, good job. Um, Distractions, other people's thoughts, own limitations to their environment. All of those things are actually really valid when it comes to thinking about what the barriers are that prevent us from learning. But one of the things that we take with that understanding is that our learning experiences so far have been quite narrow in the way that we have been taught how to learn. So for somebody like me, this is the ideal way of learning, because I have the immediate interaction that's happening on my screen, and it's really great because I can actually see that something that I was wanting to test out for the first time today, I was pretty sure it was going to work, but I can see that it's actually worked, and it's really good and really exciting. When we actually look at the way that we learn, research tells us that we only take in about 10% of what we read, a little bit more of what we hear, a little bit more of what we taste, a little bit more of what we touch, and the bulk of what we take in education actually comes through the depth of the sensory experience, not just using one sense or two senses. So I'm actually quite encouraged by this and really, really like the idea of having the multisensory experience. And I'm just going to pop this over here on the side here. So keep writing on there, because that's actually really, really helpful. The first thing that I want to do is to encourage you that if you've been able to actually just click on the link and actually add a comment to this, then that's a really fantastic space and way to start. The second thing that I want to encourage you with too is the idea that we can see down here, somebody's just written that online it's public. I can assure you that we can create online communities that aren't public, but that are there for the purposes of building relationship with one another. And it doesn't have to be a public space. So I hope for you that's given you a little bit of encouragement there, just in that initial thing too. So the second thing that I wanted to do was just quickly take you through a couple of things. Some of you, and I'm going to have to just drop the screens up now because I've put them all down and I can't find them. So just work with me while you see all of my screens ready for this particular occurrence this afternoon. Oh, there we go. Barriers to learning. That's that one. What I wanted to do was actually just get you to think about for a few minutes. Simon Sinek is really quite popular in terms of thinking about how we learn. And now, one of the things that they're talking about a lot more is in terms of the visibility of education, the visibility of learning. So they're moving away from this idea of what we learn is something that just happens inside our brain to it's the visible expressions of what we learn and how we learn it. And so you'll see on my screen now, and you can keep adding to the other one because it's still popping up on my screen here. You just can't see it. So Simon Sinek talks about this golden circle idea, right? That at the heart of what we do is the idea of why. We need to know why we do something, and regardless of whether it's business or personal or the church or anything else, a sports club or whatever, why we do something sits at the heart of it. And usually it has a relational component to it. The how is the thing that actually tells us the process. So that's for us, we're going to be using the educational frameworks that I've been talking about. The what for us is the stuff that we're doing in terms of faith formation and actually creating experiences and opportunities for interaction with discipleship. I want to actually take this one step further because I think there's a dimension that's missing from this. And for me, it's actually the fourth dimension that's missing from this. It's the who. And the who is what sits right at the very middle of all of these things. Because if we're actually attending to the faith formation of an individual, regardless of their age, because all of these things are things that can be used across age ranges, then who they are becomes really important, and not just who they are, but it's what we know about them that becomes really important as well too. I wonder if you've got people in your congregation or in your setting that have different expressions or needs for learning, and how much of that is actually something that's filtered through into the work that we do, either in our services of worship or our Bible study times or our Sunday school lessons, to actually engage with the needs that they have. Chances are probably not a huge number are actively engaging in thinking about what the needs of the person are. For example, one of my kids has got really low muscle tone, and we're still working with a fairly traditional model in my congregation, which is great, and I love them dearly. But that means that every time we come to a cut and paste activity for Sunday school, he just switches off completely because it's actually something that is a physical challenge for him. So it becomes a barrier to his learning. And when we are finding barriers that go up that actually prevent us from engaging in the story of Jesus, then that becomes an inhibitor to our own faith formation experience. So whether it's the language that we use, or whether it's the physical resources we use, or the online resources we use, the things that are barriers actually are the things that stop us from wanting to engage in relationship with God and with one another, because we have to put in a whole lot of work to do that. So I want to actually give you a little bit of a breath of fresh air there for you. So for my Marvel friends, yes, it is a tesseract, because as you can see, the individual fourth dimension that sits in the middle actually is in the middle of all of it, and everything else spins and moves around that. So today what we're going to do is talk about how we use the resources of digital tools to be able to form more in line with what educational frameworks now call, or the education sector calls, individual education plans, because we're actually considering the needs of the individual in the learning experience as well. And there's a whole lot of things that I've put up that we can talk about, actually how that happens and how we make that work. So on with the show. In the digital tools for discipleship website, which you have got access to now, you should actually you should actually have the question there of what there's two things there, the getting to know you stuff. So if you can just do those getting to know you things, which is two questionnaires for you, quick ones. It's about cake. It's great. I love cake, and I love all those really nice things that go with cake and with learning. What I want to do today is take you through the lesson that we're going to be looking at, which is going to appear on my screen in a second when I can find the slide, because I've got several slides open. Here we go. So I want to actually show you how I use the basics of things that you're already familiar with, and I'm putting them all on the screen here because I'm going to swap from screen to screen as we go. I want to show you how we might think about creating a program for Advent using this particular idea. So for me, one of the things that I do when I want to actually think about this is taking in the whole experience. The goal, and really it comes down to using an educational understanding and framework. So the goal is to actually provide a learning experience where the learner, regardless of age, can experience the story of the gospel or the story of Advent or whatever the story or topic is that we're dealing with at the time. And this is why we're doing it this way, because I have, here we go, that's the one I'm after. I have so many different windows open just so that I can show you easily what we're doing. So some good old faithfuls. You don't have to try and do things out of your comfort zone or out of the process. What I've provided for you on there is the resources which actually show a whole range of different places you can go to find the things that you might need to find. The first thing we're going to do is look at creating an Advent resource. And what I have for you here is just a template. I didn't make this, it's a template I found. And on the Wakelet board, that is the resources, it's listed in the resources. What you're going to find is I've provided you with all of this stuff from Growing Faith Down Under. This is the Wakelet board, which has got a whole lot of different resources and things on there, and a whole lot of templates as well too. I actually just opened up one of these sites and went, I want to create something that I can use over multiple weeks because I want to actually do the whole of Advent, and found this fantastic folder. So that's what I'm using. So I've already started putting a couple of little things in there, and what you'll see as we go through is just the creation of a couple of these things. These are actually really simple to use, even though it might look complex. I don't do any of the stuff that's on the screen. All I'm doing is adding the content and changing the content that goes in there. So if I'm thinking about how I talk to my community about Advent, I might decide that I want something that they can engage with, not just collaboratively together, but something that they can engage with at other parts of time during the week as well. So the welcome message here could be something as simple as let's see, I'm going to make lots of typos now. Have you ever wondered what Advent is? For those of us who are in the know, we know that Advent is the process of time leading up to Christmas. But if this is something that folks are approaching for the first time, I'm more likely to go and grab something like these links that I have to different YouTubes or other things. I'm going to pick this one today. I pulled some up to have a look at, and these are things that you can all have well for you. So what is Advent? The link that I'm choosing to use today is actually a link that comes from the Godly Play community as well too. It's one of their links that they've put in, which gives a really great description. I'm actually just going to click. You can see down the bottom there, it gives you the option of actually linking to other slides, but today I'm linking externally. So I'm just cutting and pasting and hitting apply, and then you can see that the link is actually formed there. And if you click on the link, it's going to take you to the story of Advent in Godly Play. So that's one thing there. Let's look at the first week of Advent. So to do this, I'm going to actually use the panels down the side here, and I'm going to just roll you through a couple of these, because then you'll get the opportunity to think some more about it and how you do it as well. So on the screen here, it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because it was one that came from a school community. If you have a look, and what I've done is I've actually already gone in and done the work of changing those titles so it says what we're talking about on the screen. I didn't want to do that on the screen here because I didn't want to confuse you and make you think that it was too hard. It's not, but it could appear to be if it's something you're looking at for the first time. So I'm going to actually just put in here what is Advent and relink. And this is the form that we're going to use. So what will happen is that each person that engages with this is going to actually receive this, and it will be their own piece of work, or they can do a collaborative piece of work. Just to make it something nice to begin with, I want to actually do something slightly more creative and add in a song video as something to get them started with, as a way of entering into the space. So I've got my star here, but I can't actually add a link to that image. So what I'm going to do is just put a shape over the top of it, which is actually just a rectangle shape. It doesn't really matter too much, but I'm going to line it up, and you can see there that I've got the color completely blacked out. I'm going to go up and just change it so that it's completely transparent. So it's sitting above everything else, but it's actually not obstructing what's there. And the beautiful part about that is now my little insert link button is now active, which means I can actually go and link that to something else. So I pulled up a couple of songs that I thought would be something earlier. That would be a great way to just start the conversation about Advent for folks who are experiencing it for the first time. And so I'm just popping one of those in there. So what happens is, and I'm going to do this so you can see it, as you flip through different things, and in this case, as we hit the present button on here, you get this that comes up, and it actually looks like a folder, right? More than that, it actually responds like a folder. So if I click on the week one, it's going to take me to the week one. If I click on what is Advent, it's taking me straight to the what is Advent page. And there you can see it's coming up. So there are ways that we can do this so that it actually stays on the screen and doesn't disappear. So don't panic about that. This is just to give you the brief overview to begin with. So we've got a couple of little things there. We've got a couple of bits and pieces. It's going to now go back into the full screen. Great. So we're now moving on to week one. And so week one, we know, is going to be the week of hope. And in some places they talk about faith, I think, in the first week as well too. And so I don't actually have to create any of the content, as it were, myself, because our Revised Common Lectionary already provides me with all of the scripture readings and things that I might need for that. So I'm going to actually pop a video in here, and this is just a little place marker that's there. So if I want to, I can put a video in there. So the video can play on there. And as we go into, I think I want to add not that one, reflections. Actually, this one was quite good. It's an amazing the resources you can find online. And I have found that sticking to videos and songs and other clips and things that maybe sit around the 3 to 4 minute mark actually become much easier and more accessible. Now, because I've actually got my place marker there, if I go up to the insert, I can hit the insert video. It's going to ask me, where's it? It's going to ask me. The beautiful thing about Google is that everything is integrated. So the moment I actually start to work in other spaces, I don't have to go outside of Google to do that. I can do it from inside of Google. So you'll see I just grabbed the link I had earlier because that was the one that I knew, and I've just thrown that in. Highlighted it blue so I can select it and put it in. And now it's given me this to actually put in there, which is really cool because it means that I can actually pop that in over top of the place marker there. And so when I hit the play button, that's actually going to play there in the space, unless I tell it to do the work of going full screen, which we could do, but we don't need to. So you can actually have things sitting inside there that will stay the same and you'll be able to use. Week one. What other things would you want to include? This is your opportunity to add some comments. What other things would you want to include in information about the weeks of hope and faith? I might see if I can find the scripture readings for this. And so what we do is we go through and we use the same process, RCL, B. Now, if I was doing this for kids, I might actually find, no, I'm not going there. I might actually find a kids version, but because this is something that I'm wanting to actually have that suits a whole lot of age ranges, I'm not just going to keep myself moving through the younger age groups. Having said that, though, this is really important stuff for the younger age groups, and it's really important that the kids actually get to do this stuff for themselves, because we know, and research does tell us, that if we don't actually attend to helping them figure out the tools to do their faith development while they are young, then they're less likely to actually maintain their world of faith in and their faith views in adulthood. So this is stuff that's actually really child friendly, but it's not for kids, it's for everyone. And it's really important that we actually get that understanding. So I've just cut and pasted the text in there, and it's actually done the whole, I'm going to highlight that and make it black for me, which I don't want it to do. So some of it's just fiddling and playing, but it's stuff that you're all familiar with because it's all cut and paste. It's all using things previously. I'm using Google, though you can actually use PowerPoint to do this as well. If you wanted to use PowerPoint, you certainly can do that. And now that I've got you all watching me, I'm not going to be able to find the button I need to actually get rid of the bold highlights there. Oh, I know what it is. It's a formatting thing. We're going to clear the formatting on there. There we go. And so we can just change the text size. If I select the whole of the box, it's going to drop the whole of the text into there, and we can see that. And that may look small now while you're looking at it, but remember, when you actually do the work of presenting it, it's going to appear on the whole screen, so it's okay. Down the side here, they've already done the work of adding in all of the different pages and things for you. And so I'm going to just pop back into the present view, because what you'll see is that you actually don't have to do any of that work at all, because when you go forward and backward, they've already linked all of these pages together. And what's actually really quite amazing about this is that the links are all internal inside PowerPoint or Google, so that you don't actually have to do any of the work. You can do it in Keynote as well too. So any of them you can do with. If I wanted to add an internal link, say for example on my activity 2 here, which I've got, that's probably just going to be a word puzzle in a minute. If I hit the insert link button, I can say I want to go to slide 6. I'm going to find the activity 2 slide. If there's no activity 2 slide anywhere, I can just copy and paste a slide into the end of this, which I'm going to do just so you can see it. I'm going to insert a slide. I'll just, for sake of my own, no, it won't matter where I put it. I'm going to put it at the end. Insert the slide, insert the material onto the slide, and then you are ready to go. Because it's actually all part of a particular week's program, it's telling me that I have to change the layout so that I have it there. Now, what day were we looking at when we were doing that? We were looking at purple colour. See, I didn't go what day or week. I went for what colour, because that's what makes the most sense to me. It's the thing that I remember first. So I'm going to actually just make it the main point there and change the layout so that I've got it in week 2. And then what I can do is actually just go back up to where I was working on the activity 2, do the work of linking, and I'm going to tell it to link all the way down, but it's not going to find it for me. Where are you? I want to link to page 16, slide 16. There we go. So it really is that simple in terms of getting things done. What I do with slide 16 is then I actually do the work on slide 16, which is something that will have already been done in other places. In the resource Wakelet board there, you'll see there's a whole lot of places where I actually access free material online too. So I'm just going to open up for you In fact, I'm going to open up, I'll use the Wakelet board because that will be easier. I don't want templates today. I'm going to find a game creation site. Yes. On the game creation sites, I think it's under this one, there are all manner of things there for you. Jigsaw puzzle. Let's go for a jigsaw puzzle today because that's what I saw first. That you can actually just do the work of importing your own information into, and you can create for yourself without having to do any other work. This is free too, so I hit the create button up the top here. Yes, you do have to log in for a couple of them, but the beauty of that is that they don't cost anything. So I've tried to keep all of the costs way down, but for sake of ease, I'm not going to show you that. What I am going to show you though is my favorite. I can't help it. This is my absolute favorite. Word wall is the bomb, like completely. And I am just going to sign in. So just excuse me while I do that because I thought it was already done, but I've just cleared my computer. There we go. So now that I'm signed in, this is brilliant because this one is like it's a all-in-one game, which means that you get a whole range of different things that you can do with the one particular type of information. So in my particular activities, because I've done this a few times now, you can see that I've got other things there. Oh, look, I've already done an activity one. Let's just throw that one in for sake of ease today. Now you know what I meant about my brain. This one is one that has already been made by me. I used the information from one of the readings to put in here, and what it is it's actually it's a nativity word puzzle, but this one's a bit harder because I haven't included any clues in this one. So you actually have to do the work of finding the words without having any clues, but they're all words that should be familiar because they come from the story. If I want to actually take this and insert this, I can insert this on my own screen as well too, and I can insert it into my own PowerPoint that I have been creating there. I want to show you a different process today just in case you can't do that particular stuff. What I want to do is I want to take this activity that I've already got here and I want to actually change it. So I'm going to use this and I'm going to go switch template. There it is. From interactives, I'm going to go to printables. And the reason I'm going to go to printables is because if you don't know how to do the work of doing the other bit, or you're a little bit scared about it, you don't have to panic because you can still just do your cut and paste thing. So all I did was hit the printables button, downloaded it to my computer, and now I can actually do the work of just cutting and pasting the square as well, so that it's too big, so that I can actually just insert that onto the screen and have that there. Now I'm going to just go to, where's my edit? I'm going to edit the PDF just because it means that I can easily grasp the whole of this. It's supposed to do that anyway. Let's crop it. There we go. So if I crop the page, I can crop all the other stuff out and just take that segment, and I'm just going to copy it in. Now that I'm done with that, I can go back across over here and I can just paste that. No! See? I can just paste it. Right-clicking on it and I can grab it as a select tool, which I'm not bringing back up, but it's exactly the same. And I can tell it to copy with formatting. Actually, I will do that. I can tell it to copy with formatting, or you can see here it's going to tell it to take a snapshot as well. If your computer does what my computer does, yeah, go on.
Hey, Amanda, Craig here. I reckon we need to pause for Q&A in a sec. Is that okay?
Beautiful. That's fine. Yeah, completely. I'm happy for you to start fielding some of those questions, and I'll just keep fiddling around with this because it really is just a process of going through and doing this. So I'm going to take a snapshot.
Can I put myself in the corner, or will I take over the whole thing?
You can do whatever you need to.
Nothing
Feel
happened. Oh, look.
free.
Oh, we're both in the corner. That's,
Great. Oh, brilliant.
I'm not sure I wanted to do that or not, but that's what it did. So, folks,
That's all right. We'll leave
Amanda's
it
going to
there.
keep clicking, but you might have some questions buzzing. I've got a few. What do you want to ask at the moment about what's going on?
Yeah, please do.
So Amanda, you're putting together. Let me ask the obvious, which
Yeah,
is you're
please
putting
do.
together a series of lessons that
Yes. Yeah.
how will people access this?
So people will be able to access this either through the now. When you say people, are you talking about end users? So you're talking about the people that are actually
Yeah.
going to.
Sorry. I don't
Yeah.
mean the
Okay.
people
Cool. No,
watching today. I don't mean
I'm
the studio audience.
checking.
Oh, right, sorry.
No
I
studio
mean
audiences. End
the
users. Yep.
learners in the local
The
church. Just want to
learners.
talk a little bit
Yeah.
about
So
that.
the learners in the local church can actually access this because it's something that can either be shared directly to them or it's something that can be put onto a congregational site. I have a particular preference for using Google, and for me, that's because it's a completely integrated system to the point where you can actually create your own free website as well too,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I've used to actually put all of the information for the digital tools for discipleship stuff on. And what you'll see on there is that you can actually import this as an item onto that website, and then congregations can actually just go and access it there. The other good thing too is with some of this stuff, if you're using printables and things as well too, it's actually still accessible as well to people who may not be able to operate online. So you do get that sense of the same information is going into the blended environment there. So you're not having to recreate or do new stuff or big stuff or, add extra work for yourself because everybody can still participate. Um,
Just to backtrack, so you could email people a link.
You could email people a link. You could email people a link for the file itself so they can
Yep.
actually do the
Down.
work in this file.
Yeah.
You could email them a link to
The
the
web.
website.
Yep.
You could put it up onto a church Facebook page, so you could actually set up and put it up onto a Facebook page. If you wanted to do it collaboratively with a group of people, you could actually jump onto Zoom together or any other platform and do it together there
Yep.
too.
Yep.
And
So
there's a couple of platforms. Yeah, go on.
Oh no, I'm reading the thing. So Judy's asked, could you put a link in the news sheet? I mean, you could, couldn't you? And
Yeah,
if
you
you wanted
could,
to put
especially.
if you want to put a shortened link, like make a tiny URL, so it's not this
Yep.
great long thing, you could create one, and people could just go home and, or
So
during the sermon, they could look it up.
and do it on their phone. And with the stuff I was doing with Growing Faith Down Under, what I actually had was the couple of kids that were in my congregation. Um, we got to a point where there were not going to be any adults who were going to be able to provide for them on occasion. And so what we did was just I gave them all the information and they sat in the congregation and they did it and they did the same work next to one another and next to their families as well. So what I've just done, and you will have seen me do it, is at the top of the screen, just shorten the link by putting Bitly in. So Bitly is actually another
Yep.
free resource, which will be in the free resources on the Wakelet boards there. And it actually just allows you to create a shortened, URL, which makes it a bit more easy, a bit more
I'm
accessible.
just moving us so people can see that at the top. Yep.
Please do,
So
yeah.
what I like
Um,
about this is
yeah,
like
drink, I'll do that.
I've developed lesson plans which involve my a blank sheet of paper and my brain
Yeah,
for what it's worth. But what you've got is a whole bunch of tools that you can
yeah,
assemble, where half the work is done for you, and
yeah,
you've
yeah,
obviously got to put some content in.
yeah, yeah. So really the focus for us is then about what content do we put in and how do we want to express that, rather than actually having to focus on how are we going to create something that's going to be usable for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
Um,
Hang on,
One of the things that
can I just hold it? Just some questions.
yeah,
So I'm following these. So Chris has asked about people doing this during the service. So the idea isn't that people do this during worship, is it? It's that they're doing the learning at another time. I was joking
you could
about
actually,
doing
yeah,
stuff
you
during the
could do
sermon.
it both ways. I wasn't though, because,
Okay.
when I had congregations in my congregation where I actually didn't have anybody leading my kids' ministry
Mm-hmm.
stuff for a couple of weeks. I actually said to the families there, and I did it from the pulpit at the beginning of the service. All of the material for the kids is actually on the Growing Faith Down Under website. You can
Yeah.
just click on the link that's there. You will have got it in this week's newsletter. Click on it, it'll take them through, and they can actually work through the whole of the lesson there. But the idea is that it becomes something that can be used both synchronously and asynchronously.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it's stuff that you can do either on demand in your own time, which is the asynchronous stuff, or it's stuff that you do synchronously together in community at one time. So you can like it. There really aren't a lot of limitations around how you can use this. You can do it pretty much however you need to do it.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. And,
you
and,
know,
and
it can
you
be used in all sorts of ways.
and you said before that mobile devices it'll work. Some I'm sure that some
Yeah,
tools work better on mobile devices than others. So you're
yeah,
not.
yeah, they do. The beautiful thing about the Google platform is that they work really well on mobile devices. And actually, if you create a Google site for your congregation to actually put all of this stuff into, you can turn that into an app as well. So it's tailored. If you have a look though, when I do the work of actually, uh, if I jump down to the site, I have got, which is the Digital Tools for Discipleship site. I'm just finding it.
While you're
Trying to
doing
work out
that,
where it is.
Matt's got a question. We'll come back to later, Matt, about
Yeah, yeah,
how families react to this kind of learning. But let's talk about that later, not
yeah,
now, as part of that Q and A at the end. So I'll remember
yep,
that,
yep.
or Duncan will
Good,
remember
because I
that one
haven't
as
written.
well.
I'm just jumping into where my sites are so that you can see it. Because no, oh goodness, got to press the return button. I don't want anything new. What I want is just to open up the digital tools for discipleship. So this is the back end of what the site looks like for me. It's really, really simple. It looks exactly like yours. And the good thing is when you actually do the work of previewing, just so you can see it, you can actually preview it in a phone, a tablet, and a desktop size. So you can see what is going to work on what screens and how it's going to look. So for example, on this one, when you're looking at a phone, your menu actually disappears up onto the blue bar, like the three bars. So it's really quite easy to navigate and to do. The other amazing thing too, and this is what's different from Google to Microsoft, not that I'm actually, biasing one or the other, is that if you are an NGO or a church and you have all of the right documentation, you can actually get the whole of the Google not for profit suite, which is quite extensive. And it's what I use with my congregation, completely free. And that doesn't just give you access to um, the stuff that we've got here, but it gives you access to a whole lot more, including every single person or every single position in your congregation can have an email address as well. So you can then create some of the more intimate community experiences that you might want to create because it's actually a closed community. It can be, by invitation, but you can't just rock up and say, hey, I'm here for this, because of the way that it's actually structured. So there's some really, really great tools. And if anybody wants to ask me about that, they can, do that at another time. Um, but it has been amazing because in congregations where you have older folks, some of whom don't even have access to computers, all of a sudden they have access to an email address. Or if you have a position like a chairperson or a secretary or an office person, then what happens is it's the position that actually gets the email address, not the person. So then if something happens and the position changes people, all of the information remains with the position, not with the person. So that's just a great old tip there for you as well too. So this is my word search. And there's lots more I could add into this as well. And I'll build it up and I'll keep building it up. What I want to do though for the month of November is offer people the opportunity to come and to work through building up projects like this with me so that they've got something for Christmas and for Advent as well too. So we can actually do the work of exploring this stuff together. and actually putting together a package so that it's something that you can say, this is what I'm offering to our community for the season that we currently are in. Um, and yeah, there are endless opportunities and uses for it because we're just taking the educational framework and we're deciding what the information is we want to put into it. So I think that's pretty cool, and it's a great time saver too. So, do you have more questions there?
So can I? So just so you know, you're on the screen, not me, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
What about? You talked early on about neurodiversity and briefly on kind of different learning styles. So, can you want to
Yeah,
say a bit about choosing the kinds of activities or the range of activities?
yeah.
And because we know it's not just about information, is it?
No, it's not. It's about the way, like, it's not just about information, it's about presentation and it's about transformation. And probably the easiest way to actually to show you that is to maybe give you a quick look at the way that I have been working through this. So, because of the need that I have for needing to keep things in an kind of an orderly plan or an orderly place so that I know what's going on and where I'm up to. I created a whole lot of cheat sheets as well, which you've all got access to, or you will have access to by the time the day is out and finished with. And again, I'm just using OneNote. So I do use both Google and Microsoft. OneNote's great because OneNote actually gives me the capacity to be able to, um, put a whole lot of information in. Um, so when I was looking at Advent, I literally just went through and went, what are all the different themes I can think of? These are all the different themes. I'm going to pick this one for this year, which is the one I've coloured in. And then I'm going to file this. And it means that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years worth of ideas that I don't even have to try and think about because next year I go, I'm going to do an Australian Christmas and I just start finding the information. So we're not actually wasting the space of the thinking and the brainstorming that we've done. We're actually putting it into good use for future years. Um, when it comes to thinking about lessons, this is where, for me, the idea of the recipe becomes really important because we're actually taking into consideration all of the different senses. So it's about what am I experiencing with my ears and my eyes and my nose and my mouth and my touch, and the way that I've been looking at the recipe, which if I bring it up, and you guys will have this on the sheet too, and you'll be able to see it as well as it comes as you get it further. Um, the recipe is actually a great way of approaching it because it gives you the opportunity to say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the base things like the kitchen pantry staples that you use, and I'm going to flavor it. And this week I'm going to flavor it this way, and next week I'm going to flavor it that way. And this is the one I'm after. And the way that we do that is the thing that actually makes the difference to what it is. So we take a great recipe, whereas if we're talking about MasterChef, all of the chefs get a genre of cooking. Is that what they call it? It's, genres of music and movies and things. They get
Kind of
a
cuisine, some
style
kind
of
of
cooking, a
cuisine.
cuisine or something. They're told they have to do it in a particular way, and so they use that. That's their recipe. Then they actually take the foundational ingredients that they know goes with that, and they put it together with some flavor enhancers and some finishing touches and some complementary flavors, and then all of a sudden you've got a great cake or a great curry or anything else. The same is true of when we're actually producing a lesson. And for me, the way that we do that is by using the process of actually creating the digital lesson recipe, the discipleship lesson recipe. And so on this one, I've done it like this purely so I've got the visual cues as well. The recipe title for me is my big idea. It's the themes of Advent. The foundational ingredients are the base tech and the base apps that I'm using, and I've just put in there that I'm going to do a PowerPoint folder template. So I don't have to do the work of going, what am I going to do? I just have to say which particular PowerPoint folder template that I've got in my collection appeals to me today for this. And then I'm going to just use Google Apps and YouTube, and they're the base things. So if I'm going to do the enhancers, I'm going to add some audio or a video, or I'm going to do like I did, and I added the particular what was it, the cut and paste of the the game. And if I had more time today and I knew it would work really well, I would actually show you how I do that in the app and how I send it straight to my site, or how I make it go, to embed it. But I don't want to try and do that now. So we've done it the cut and paste way, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Um, the beauty of those things though is I actually get to add the enhancers based upon what the experience is. And all the time I'm doing that, I'm constantly thinking about, well, what are the ways within which people are engaging in it? Is there something there that they can see, they can hear, they can touch, they can smell, and they can taste? That for me, that is it as well too. So if I go back to the discipleship um, lesson recipe, on there you'll see it's got sources and sides. And for me, that's about what are the complementary things that I'm adding into it. How am I actually using all of the resources that I have and all of the senses? Do I need to create an opportunity? And usually I would say, yes, I do. Create an opportunity for them to actually do something physical in their own world space as well too. So for Advent, I'd be doing that by saying, let's make an Advent calendar together, or let's make an Advent wreath, and let's talk about the experiences of what the candles represent, and actually go through and provide the resource as well for them to be able to create something that actually sits in their real world space and is not just something that's been an online engagement. And the beauty of
Amanda,
that
that's
too
really, yeah,
is,
go on. Sorry, I want to ask you about that. Keep going.
yeah, no, that's right. I was just going to say the beauty of that too is that it becomes an interactive real world experience as well too, because that's the way within which you can engage families and do the work, amongst one another as well too. Um, Craig, I'm going to have a sip of my drink so you can
Yeah,
ask me another
yeah, and
question.
I'll jump on screen because I can. So,
Hmm.
so I really like that for a couple of reasons. One is that you're saying, as you just said, it's not just a person in front of a screen clicking on things, but that you're providing a prompt for them to do things that might be now, might be later, might take happen over a period of
Yeah,
time, and you're also thinking of ways that might engage the family,
yeah,
not just the individual.
yeah.
And obviously,
And it
Advent's a great time for that. You can
absolutely,
build
and
something up.
it's yeah, completely. It's not just about the kids either. Um, I've got people in my congregation who love it when I put a word puzzle in, or I've got people who are particularly fond of colouring in. So when I offer them a colouring in sheet, they love that. And I'm just looking down at one of the questions that's come in about whether it's distracting having people doing a puzzle during the service or not. Doesn't that mean they aren't listening? Well, actually, if you're someone like me who is neurodiverse, you actually need to have multiple lots of stimuli and input to be able to focus and get things done. So it's not uncommon for me to sit in a meeting and to be drawing, or to be knitting, or to
Mhm.
be taking copious notes, or doing something else. Because it's the way that I actually get my brain to stay engaged in the present moment of what I'm doing and where I am, because it's not distracted by all of the wandering thoughts that happen and all of the other things that go on in there as well too. So
And
no, the answer is it may be distracting for some people, but if it's actually talked about in the community well, in terms of how we approach making the gospel accessible for everyone, then I think it's less likely to be a distraction.
there's a thing in anthropology about cultures that are monochronic, which means one thing at a time, or
Yeah,
polychronic, which means multiple
yeah,
things at a time. And our Western
absolutely.
Protestant worship tends to be focus on this, focus on this, focus on this, whereas other
Yeah,
cultures will have lots of stuff happening, and you pay attention to
absolutely.
what you want to pay attention to.
Absolutely. And funnily enough, the way that we do things in our Western culture, especially when it comes to worship, is um, I would say a considerable away from how things would have been done in the very early days. They're things, they're inherited traditions that have come from um, the institutions of church, rather than from the lived out gospel stories that we hear about in scripture.
And if you think about the modern classroom, it's not kids sitting rows facing the front and one thing's happening, and you've all got to listen to it at the same time. It's
Mm.
interactive spaces. There's stuff happening all over the room. There are people doing different
Yep.
things. There are students collaborating, and so
Yep.
the modern classroom is multisensory. It's multi-activity. It's
Absolutely.
we talked about project based the other day. You want to bring that in at
Yeah.
some point, and I'll hop
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
screen again and let
Certainly.
you keep
Yeah. No,
going.
that's fine. So if I was going to do this in terms of project based, and I'm thinking about adults as well too, um, this has got huge applications as well for doing Bible studies and other kinds of work. One of the ways that I've been starting to grow and use this is in helping to provide instruction or education, for want of a better phrase, uh, around the whys and hows of worship, and around the whys and hows of polity, and around the whys and hows of pastoral care. So all those things that we used to once upon a time sit in 4 hour seminars for, and people would go, why on earth do we do this? Means that I can actually give really quick input by providing a 90-second or a 3 minute video clip with a couple of interactive opportunities for them to respond. So it becomes a collaborative space as well too. And then it means that when we get together in physical space, we can actually spend the hour we have together reflecting on our experiences of that information, or reflecting on our experiences of what we've learnt that was new, or what we were completely blindsided by, or what we disagree with. Rather than spending 4 hours taking in, we actually get to do the input in short, sharp sections, which are going to be far more memorable. And we get to do the group time, the collaborative community stuff, interacting with one another, which I think is a much better way to do things.
Yep, that's great. The I'm looking at the comments here as people go through, and there are comments. So one of the things that um, you've touched on and others have touched on is you could do worship. Sorry, I'll put myself on screen, so I'm not just a
No,
disembodied
that's all right.
voice.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
just popping in and out because I
I'm
can.
just looking at the
So
comments too.
so
So yeah,
so, so having as like many of us have done worship where you'll have a bunch of different stations, and there's no
yeah,
reason why you couldn't have activity-based stations like this. And they don't all
yeah,
have to have a computer, but you can have
no,
something there that people can go and do together and talk about together and move around
absolutely.
the room
Yeah,
and do that
yeah,
kind of thing. And Melissa's just
yeah,
made the comment that you could ask different members of the congregation to create something or find something or give them a link, and they actually help come across
absolutely.
or
And
create
the
the resource.
beautiful part about this is, because you can share things and collaborate, that's really awesome. And in fact, Melissa, um, for me, that's just given me the massive reminder to say to you all, the way clipboards that I've set up, and they can actually be collaborative boards too. So if you have something that you want to collaborate on there and add to that, because you've seen something, I'm just trying to find my board so I can bring it up. You've seen something that you think would be really great in that space, you don't actually need to send it to me. I mean, if I get you onto the list, you could actually add it yourself to the board. So it then does become a real place of collaboration and a real place of the breadth of experience, because you may think about it in a completely different way to me. So, um, you may have a different understanding of prayer, or you may have come across a really great video clip or something that you can add in there. And particularly when you're thinking about audio and video and the image collections and the prayers and liturgy stuff, I would love to actually have those as collaborative spaces so that you can actually contribute to those. And it really does become the work of the people, which
Mm.
is what it's supposed to be. So there's a question that Duncan's put in from someone saying, is it working okay on smartphones and tablets? Yes, would be my response. And that's the way that folks in my congregation have been using it, which is really good. Um, Uh, just quickly looking at Will's comment before Melissa's about the worship leaders, in terms of could these things be used somewhere like Topia? Yes, they absolutely could, and that's actually part of the ongoing work that will be um, uh, taking place in the coursework that happens during next year. So there are places where you can actually do the collaborative work online together in physical community with one another. Um, and I didn't want to actually attempt to delve into that today because that may be something that becomes a little bit too
Yep,
overwhelming for
I
people.
think you're right.
Um, so I just wanted to keep it simple today and to be able to say this is a starting point, and it's super simple and super easy. If you want to actually go into this more, then we can do that. The only thing I do want to talk about really quickly, and I'll show you sort of how I might do that if I'm looking at a different. I'm looking for my notes now. Looking at the next activity, which I was thinking about the nativity, and I thought, well, the nativity is one of those things that becomes uh, we sort of go over the same stuff over and over again. So it was like, oh, how do we actually talk about the nativity and make it new and different and exciting and give people what they need? Um, for me, with neurodiversity, one of the things that I found particularly helpful is actually having the triggers and the keywords. And for me, those are visual things, and they're stuff like mnemonics as well too. So I created a couple of little mnemonics to actually help me as well with that. So one of them, the first one is KISI, so it's KISI, which is actually keep it simply integrated. And if you're doing the work of keeping it simply integrated, you are not going to run into problems where things don't play nicely with one another because they don't speak the same language. So, um, when you find the things that actually integrate well and work together well, go for it and use them because that's going to give you the best experience and the best opportunity. The other thing too was I went, okay, so what we're talking about here is the structure of the content, but or the input of the content, but there has to be a process that sort of takes you from the beginning to the end. And so I've been working on getting what I call an E6 flow up, and the reason it's called E6 is because there are 6 steps to it that actually all start with E, and it's about moving from the beginning to the end of the discipleship moment, regardless of age or stage or whether it's done collaboratively or individual. So that begins with how you enter into the space. And you need to actually create options for that as well, because you're going to have some kids that respond really, really well to um, the quiet and the meditation stuff. But if you've got kids that actually are kids that have got lots of energy, they're going to need to actually do some of the work of being able to do the full bodied experience right in the very beginning. So it might be that your full bodied experience is moving around to a dance that happens. And that was one of the things that I used while I was doing the kids' stuff online during 2020 with pandemic. I'd jump onto Zoom and do the sessions with the kids across places, and they absolutely loved it because I would put on some YouTube tracks, and because we're in a closed space as well too, it didn't matter. And I would just go, hey, let's have a dance, and we'd all dance, and then we'd actually be ready to start sitting down. So how we enter is important. How we engage them in the story and the work of the story is also really important. So you'll see my nativity one is shaping up slightly different to the Advent one because I really just want to focus on a single session. Um, the beautiful thing about beginning like this is because you may have missed it, I snuck in and I chose the image that I wanted as a background. And I'm using the Google search, the integrated Google search, which means I don't have to worry about copyright, don't have to worry about any of those things because these are all things that are actually approved for use through the Google platform. So I just picked the image I wanted and then I hit done. And now it's like locked in space and you can't actually do anything else to make a mess of it, which is great. So, alrighty, so we're going to title this one. And one of the things that I put in, there's like a page with a whole lot of free websites, or a board with a whole lot of free websites, including a whole lot of font things as well too, um, because it's cool to use cool fonts. It's nice to switch it up. So what I did was I'm just looking at one of the free font sites, and I'm in the text generator section, and I want to use something. I want to use something that's going to be. I'm going to go with the old. Oh no, I'm going to go with the Celtic style. Something
Don't
Celtic.
you dare click Comic Sans.
No, 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 not for this one. No, no, no. Don't use Comic Sans. So what I do is I put the text in here, and my phrase is, "Did you know?" Then I select the font that I want, and I'm just going to go through and find a font that appeals to me right now in this moment. And I don't know. Let's go with the Eagle Lake regular, and then I'm going to pick the size I want it to be. And do I want it to have an effect? Yeah, right, let's do it. I want it to be white though, because the page that I'm putting it over is actually quite dark. If you have a quick peek at the slide there, I want to put it in between where, just above where Mary and Joseph are there. So it needs to be quite light, but I don't want it to be blue because it doesn't fit with the color scheme. So I'm just going to go right down here and grab something really light and white and go right to the end there. So I'm going to go white or pretty close to it, and you'll see that it's showing me the font there, and it's giving me the hex code as well too, which is really great if you do graphic stuff. And you'll see when I'm down here, it's there, but you can't see it because it's super light. So now you just hit copy, and you go back up to your particular piece of work, and you paste it, and I've got my really, 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 really nice header that's there, and I can now cut that and change the size around and do all sorts of things with and put it into the right place where I want it to go. So I've now got that. And you can actually then do the work of just doing exactly the same thing as you were doing with the nativity stuff. With the Advent stuff. You can just make your individual boxes that are transparent, or if you want to, you can do it with a circle. So I want to actually put something here on Baby Jesus. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it white for a moment while I find the link. I've actually got a really great little clip, which is a clip which tells the whole of the story, the nativity. And so I'm going to just copy and paste that link from further up that I have here so that I can use it in the other slide. So when I actually do put that in, I can tell it to go and find that as well. And what you're doing is you're creating for whoever's going to use it a hyperlinked.
So you're putting hotspots in. Yep.
Hotspots are
And it'll be
awesome, which
invisible,
is
will it?
great.
Yep.
It's invisible because I'm just making it transparent now that I've got my link on there. So when I actually don't have anything there, you can't see it. But if we jump into the presentation mode, you can actually then see, oh, there's the finger. So there's something there that I can click on. You can click on it and it takes you to the clip. You can do that in and out of other things as well too. So you could actually create your own little videos that say, hey, did you know? And you could have a whole lot of interactive stuff on there. So for me, one of the things that, in terms of this particular image of the nativity is that it's not necessarily well it's got harmony and it's got dissonance because they don't all appear in the same story all at the same time. So you can actually do things like that by saying, hey, did you know that in this gospel we hear the story of the wise men, and in this gospel we hear the story of the shepherds, and did you know that the time frame may have been considerably longer than what we actually have when we are telling the story over the weeks leading up to and beyond Christmas? So there's room and opportunity for doing all of those things there too. And if I wanted to, I could actually do the same work of creating the puzzles or the colouring in sheets. Oh, let's do that actually, because my beautiful collaborator, Kelly Skilton, has made some amazing colouring in pages, and that's part of the Growing Faith Down Under work that she's been doing. But she's created these amazing colouring in pages. And so what I'm going to do is go insert link, and the link that I'm going to not insert there, I'm going to see if I can find the one that I've got. It's in the Dropbox folder, so I'll have to open it up and do it the other way. But you can link to all of those things as well too. So it just gives things a little bit more, I don't know, it's interactive. It's not that I don't know, I do know. It's actually not a passive thing. It becomes an active thing because they're constantly looking, regardless of age, to see which thing they can go to next, which thing they can do next. And I've had adults say to me, they've been on and tried the crossword puzzles and things. And some of the adults have gone, well, that was actually a really hard, like I had to really work hard to do that. And so it becomes the beginnings of a platform for experimenting. Have I got 2 minutes to just, while you gather your questions, to just
Yeah.
quickly show you how it kind of morphs
Yep. A couple of minutes,
into
then we'll
other
take some
things?
questions. That'd be great.
Great. So I just want to quickly show you how this can become something that you can use in your everyday worship stuff as well too. Um, One of the things I wanted to do to make it easier for my congregation to participate was to actually save myself the work of having to do a whole lot of stuff. So I create all of my, I've created a template and I create all of my worship liturgies and things that I've done during lockdown from home and through Google Slides, which is really good. And so if I just click on one of these, you've got the preview here, which is great. Oh, I'm going to open it up. This is the liturgy that everybody has got. Everybody gets the same liturgy. So those people who don't have access to computers or any other tech stuff, they get this as well. But if you do have access to it, what you get is a few little extra things as well too. So it becomes a hotspotted document as well too. So as we begin, there's the opportunity to go and listen to a song to get yourself started. There's some of the readings are actually in there, and they're taken from the Lumo, yeah, it is Lumo, and other things. There's reflections that other people have put in there again, um, all linked back to YouTube and all linked back to the original source. So I don't have to worry about any of the permissions or copyright and stuff. And that's the beauty of it too, is that you can do that. So, if I click on Psalm 22, it's going to take me to a great little song that I found, which is just a reflection that someone has created using the words of the psalm directly. Um, so, that's a way to actually engage the older community as well too. And because I'm so big on education and actually teaching people the tools for how to do their own faith discovery, because I can't actually live your own faith story for you. All I can do is offer you the experiences and the tools that I've learnt along my journey so that you can use them for yourself. Um, Throughout the last lockdown, all of my guys got a different way of praying each week in the liturgy that they got. So it was a little brief with ways to pray, and then there were some prompts there that they could use. And sometimes, but this one doesn't appear to have it, under the picture, it would take you to something that would engage you, or it would invite you to go and do something else, like stand outside and, as your neighbours walk past, pray for your community as you look around at all of the houses and, the friends that you know and the strangers that you don't, and the things that you see as you engage with those people. So there are lots of different applications for how we can use the tools. The key is remembering that they're tools to building relationships. So the ultimate goal has to be about how do we incorporate this into our faith formation so that we're building relationship with God, and how do we incorporate this into our community life so we're building community with one another. And they're the two big questions I guess I keep at the forefront of my mind every time I go to create something like this.
All right, if I could jump in there, Amanda, with a couple of
Yeah,
things. Let me get myself
absolutely.
back on the screen. Did that work? It did work. Um, I, I, I like that community thing, and it's something you said much earlier was it was the flipped classroom thing that people explore by themselves, and then when you come
Absolutely.
together, it's about conversation, it's about talking, it's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
sharing. So the offline stuff or the online stuff complements the face to face stuff, and you're
Yeah.
thinking about how they go together. So in a post lockdown world, we're not just thinking everyone's sitting at home on a computer. We're
Yeah.
actually
No.
trying to bounce these two things off each other, if you like.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And it can be really powerful too. because it actually provides you with the opportunity, I think, to do a lot more intentional work. Because if you're talking about adults needing to explore some themes that are really hard, or getting them to learn some things that are going to challenge them because they're way outside their comfort zone, being able to sort of drip feed it over a series of days or weeks is much better than actually just lumping them all with it in one session, because you can actually do the work as you go of getting them to reflect on it. So you drip a little bit and you invite them to respond, to say, well, look, what have you noticed about this? Has it made you uncomfortable? What is it about it that's made you uncomfortable? Um, is it something that you deeply resonate with? Is it something that you just go, oh, that's a load of hooey? But you're actually then getting a much better sense of um, their own understanding and their own place, and their own theological work too, because you get to do the work of building the relationship by actually engaging in the conversation rather than just providing the input.
I remember
And it
one of
doesn't
the
have to be the minister. Yeah.
I remember one of the tools we looked at was an online journal, and I really
Oh,
like that
yeah.
idea that people might, over time, might be recording their stuff online,
Yep.
and they could be shared or it could be personal, but there's a continuity about it, and as
Yep.
you just said, then you can pose the question, so it could be open ended, but it could
Yep.
be okay. This week, invite you to journal on this, and we can come
Yep.
together and share what we were writing about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that can be really powerful too, in terms of keeping records of the whole of the community as well too. So what they talk about is those as being, it's going to find all my stuff now, digital notebooks, and you can actually create notebooks for all sorts of purposes. So in fact, I haven't created any of these notebooks. All I've done is I found them using the templates there and sort of knowing the keywords to look up, and they've actually got them all there. So you then, it's just works the same as the folder, but you can actually use it as a collaborative space. And they can do their own digital work, recording their own thoughts on there. And then you can come back together. You can get them to put little video clips in. You can get them to put whatever else in. So it does become, it's not like you do the work of getting together for Bible study and people get to bring their notes or their page or whatever it is you're working on. It's actually all there, and it becomes the process of looking at the whole, not just what you're dealing with in that moment. So you're building that collection of their own faith journey and their own theological, um, I guess, maturation as well too, as they learn from one place to another. There's a couple of other quick fun things that you can do with it too. You can actually, because a lot of these things come from schools, they do the whole yearbook thing in the States. Oh, come on, fingers. Which
Yeah,
means that,
I don't know about the church yearbook. Like
yeah, but you
yeah,
know
like
what?
they always show yearbooks when someone's been killed, and this was what the killer looked like in 1972 or something. You know?
What if this becomes the way that you actually share your annual report? So you can actually
Ah,
create an
okay, all
annual
right.
report,
Yep,
which
okay,
is
I'm with you
not
now.
just about the stuff, but it's about the relationships and all of the things that have gone on. And you can actually, yeah, you can
So
do the work of sharing
it's a
all
scrapbooky
of
kind
that.
of thing.
It's kind of a scrapbooky thing, yeah, yeah. So it's not the yearbook like you see in the movies. It's more the work of the reflective practice kind of stuff, I guess, is my that would be how I go.
So
So
I like the
yeah,
way that you keep bringing this back to experience. That we're not talking a set of tools, a set of activities, grab stuff from all over the place, but that these are prompts for people's spiritual journey.
yeah,
I mean, we haven't really gotten into this yet, but we talked the other day about people creating stuff, not just feeding them stuff, but actually giving
yeah,
them the tools that they
yeah,
can. I mean, the
absolutely.
journal's an example, I guess, that
Yeah, yeah,
they've got to fill it in.
yeah,
People taking photos, people. You talk about prayer exercises, so
yeah,
using it as a
totally.
springboard for something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I love about some of this stuff too is there's a really great template, and I'm not going to try and find it at the moment because I'll have to go through all of my templates to find it, which is actually an envelope, and it's done up like this in slides as well in Google Slides, and it's an envelope, and you can actually use that as a really wonderful way for a creative prayer expression because they write on the envelope, and it's almost like it gets posted as well, and it can it can go to a place where it can then be picked up and collaborated with as well too, and it can be like the prayers can be spoken and honored by others as well too in the receiving of that. So instead of just putting a thing on a page that says, hey, send us your prayer request, you can do this fantastic kind of thing of actually posting your prayers, like literally posting your prayers, um, and all sorts of other wonderful ways to look at it. And I guess for me, that's why um, it's really important that if this is something that you want to engage with, it's something that you need to engage with in the everyday practice as well too. And coming along and beginning the journey here and now is really fantastic. But it becomes like you've got to actually get right in and play with it, and you've got to do the work of going, how can I use this to actually express the faith story that I want to share, or how can we use this to actually put a new light around something that we want to actually make note of at this point in time too. So it is that communal stuff that always comes back to for me. And for me, it's actually like the very biggest last question is always, is when I'm doing this, and guys, when you actually have a look at the stuff that goes up as I finish putting it up onto the website there, the last evaluation question is how well and how easily was the message of the gospel proclaimed in this lesson. Like that, for me, that's it. That's where it comes back to. Because the stories that we share in faith need to be accessible for everybody, and they've got to be easy for people to engage with, because you want people to engage with the story of faith and developing the relationship with Christ. You don't want them to find things that are barriers, that actually prevent them from doing that. So I guess having expressions in all sorts of different ways rather than just one way means that chances are somebody at some point, somewhere during that experience is going to have made a connection. And for me, that just goes back to the flow of worship too, because, when we create worship, thinking about the breadth of those same experiences in gathered, um, not everybody is going to resonate with every single moment of worship, but somebody might connect with the way that you do the prayer of confession, or somebody might connect with the way that you actually do the Bible reading, or somebody might connect with the liturgy that you've used in the call to worship, or whatever it is. So it's more of, is there the opportunity for people to find the connection at some point in this engagement?
Amanda, thank you. We're going to round up in a second, so I'm going to close the screen share, if that's
Please
okay.
do. I can
And
close my screen share if you can't.
I'm
So
just
yeah,
going to
you
change
can.
the scene. Oh, look at that. We've swapped sides and got bigger. There you go.
Woohoo!
Oh, that's frightened everybody. Not you didn't, I did. Um, um, we might have a couple more questions. I want to come back to the one that Matt asked earlier, and then we'll just talk about
Yep.
what happens next for people. And it was really
Yep.
about how families are finding this engagement. So obviously, some of this is you
Yeah.
trying stuff out, and that's a
Yep.
constant thing. So what have you been finding so far about is it kids get off the computer? Oh no, it's okay because you're doing Bible stuff with the church, so you can, like what's been the reaction?
Look, I've actually had kids who have faithfully shown up to be part of the conversations that we've had, and they've really enjoyed the experiences. And we've literally gotten down and made things in front of our computers together. And one of the things we decided as a congregation was that we would actually provide the kids, because we don't have a lot of children in our congregation, with a box, a bit like a school tub, that had all of the basic stuff in it. So even if, especially in my area, there were kids whose parents may not have been able to buy glue sticks or scissors, or they didn't have things, there was something that was there so that when we gathered, we could do this together. And it had, it had plasticine and it had all sorts of things in it, and yeah, all sorts of bits and pieces. But the response has been really good, mostly because, um, from my experience, the families have connected with it together. It hasn't just been one person or a kid, or a parent. It's actually been a family experience, and I've always talked about it as being a family, faith formation experience as well too. And that's why I do the mix of sort of trying to make sure there's a balance between stuff that's going to engage with the kids and stuff that's going to engage with the adults as well. So
Let's let's um let's talk about what next. Your blog is growingfaithdownunder.org.
yeah, yeah.
Someone asked, are you open to other contributors?
Oh gosh, yes,
Oh,
please.
okay. I thought that was a difficult. Okay, that's an
No,
easy answer.
no,
Okay,
that's it.
so
It's easy because for me, it was always in my mind a collaborative process and a
okay,
collaborative project. I just had the idea to put it up in a space that was common where people could find easily, because I got sick of having to find everything all over the place and not knowing where to locate
yep,
it. And having to trawl through heaps of stuff. So, absolutely, please, if you have things you would like to contribute and you would like to collaborate with, I would absolutely be thrilled to have that input, because it's not my project. It's actually about the work of the people.
great.
That Yeah,
Great. We'll be editing a video and putting it on our Port Phillip East YouTube page. It'll also stay
yeah,
on Facebook. And then your resources from today will be on your blog, and we'll have a link to
mm,
the video, and we'll
mm,
put them
mm,
on our
mm.
presbytery
Yep,
website as well, and we'll put a
yep,
link on the Facebook page.
yep,
And
yep.
you've offered to do some follow-up sessions, so you'll be putting that on your in details on your blog as well.
Yeah, I absolutely will. And folks, if you are watching this for the first time, I ran out of time and so haven't managed to get up onto the digital tools
It's a whole lot
website
more
that's
stuff. Yeah,
there you've
yeah,
got
that's
today. Please, just click the Facebook like for Growing Faith Down Under, because when I actually offer those sessions, you'll get all the information then as well too. So that's a thing there, a quick thing.
Listen, there's a button here I just want to try. What happens when I do this? Oh, look at
I
that.
don't know.
We can get
Oh, yeah,
here
that's
we
it.
go.
Look
Look
at
at
that.
that. I just found out I can stuff on the Facebook feed.
I can't see what you're
There you
doing,
go.
so
Well,
hey, you've
that's
learned something
I
again.
can put
It's good.
nice comments up on the screen.
I
Folks,
appreciate that.
thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Amanda, let me thank you on behalf of everyone here. Um, I want to say in the nicest way that what's happening in your brain is amazing, and
People often tell me that, but it's often quite confronting for them too. So
it's been really good to just get the tip of the iceberg of
yeah,
your and actually get a sense that you're playing with this. You know, like it's enjoyable, which it ought to be, interesting. That you're collecting stuff, so
yeah,
that collection that you're making that we can dip into and share,
yeah.
and it's really just it's like opening a door. It's like going through the wardrobe into Narnia and going,
Oh, it is.
what
It
the
is.
heck's this is
Yeah,
amazing. So and really
yeah.
appreciate your offer of doing some follow-up stuff with people, so I'm sure
Oh, my
people will pop
pleasure.
over to the website and check that out. So
Yeah, please
folks,
do.
please, if you want to add comments of thanks to Amanda, and thank you those of you who were doing that, then that would be great.
Thank you for letting me share with you all today. The last thing I would say is our faith formation experiences are supposed to be life giving. So if your faith formation experiences are not life giving for you, then you need to actually think about how you can add some new things into it so that it becomes life giving.
That's a good way to finish. So go in peace, folks, and we'll see you another time for another blended faith formation seminar online soon. So long.